G'day everyone, welcome back to another weekly tipping video on the channel. Today I'm going to be going over my tips for round 17 of the 2024 AFL season. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you do going to enjoy today's video. And as always, let's start off with how I went last week. Okay, so how I went from round 16, I got myself a 6 out of 9. A pretty okay score, I'd say, in the top 41% according to ESPN Footy Tips. There was a number of upsets this round with, for example, the Dockers knocking off the Swannies, the Crows knocking off the Giants. I think as well the majority did tip Collingwood, like myself, to beat the Suns too. So I got a few of those wrong, but tipped the Lions as many people did. Stormed home in the last quarter to steal it in the end. The Doggies over the Kangaroos, and how about this, the Swannies and the Dockers. What a win for Fremantle, holding on just at the end. And then, yeah, backed in the Pies just away from home. They've been good this year, but impressive win by Gold Coast at home, building a fortress there at the moment. I was bullish on the Crows to bounce back post the bye, and they sure did that. Looked great. Isaac Rankin, what a star. And I was just really big on Essendon to try and pinch this result, but the Cats continue to own the Bombers, and yes, there was controversial umpiring, but the better side still did win. And the Sunday games, one of the worst games of the year, to be honest. Port holding on. The Blues spanking Richmond in that third quarter especially. And as for the Hawks, they got the job done pretty easily over the Eagles. Okay, a quick look now at my Riles Macca tipping competition. Looking through round 16, we did have a few people get all their tips correct. Sasha, 𝐴𝐴𝐴𝐿, John Peterson 45 and ESPN fan 27682233171 got all their tips correct. Well done to them. And as for who is leading my competition, it still is ESPN Footy Tips user. Now I'm pretty sure this guy did note himself down below in the comments in one of the previous tipping videos saying, oh, this is me, but still for some reason his name isn't appearing, but he's leading the comp with 119 points. Let's now begin with our tips for round 17. We start on Friday night footy. The Pies taking on the Bombers at the MCG. Of course, last time these two sides played in the Anzac Day game earlier this year, it was a pretty memorable draw. And compared to now, these two sides are still pushing for a top 4 spots. The Bombers, though, well exposed by the Cats last week, well beaten in transition. And yes, the umpiring had some not very advantageous moments when you talk about it from an Essendon point of view, but still how they defended the ball movement was very disappointing and just got killed off the turnover. A lot of heads did drop after half time, so they don't want to have another season of this Essendon just getting killed apart in the second half of the year. The midfield did start off well against the Cats last week, so they'll definitely want to be getting back on the horse here against the Pies, who headed up to the Suns and copped a loss, but not really too much shame in that, I guess, because Gold Coast have yet to lose at home this year. But there are also a few deficiencies in Collingwood's game from watching it last week defensively, and this has been a bit of a common case throughout the Pies season. They aren't as defensively strong as they were last year. Darcy Moore and Frampton were well exposed last week. So this one, it's a bit of a tough one to be honest, because Collingwood probably are the better team, but they have still been a beatable side. And as for Essendon, how are they faring against these top 8 sides? Their record isn't very good this year. They've got to bring back that strong clearance game like they had earlier in the season. They've got to be tough at it. Their pressure is very good at the start of the year too, and that's felt like it's dropped off a little bit. And yeah, I just feel like, especially at the G, with how Collingwood moved the footy, for me that could probably well expose Essendon's defence here. So could go either way. These are always close games, these rivalries. I think this one will go back and forth, but I'm feeling a bit of a bounce back here for Collingwood. So we'll back him in. 80% currently tipped on ESPN, and we'll go with him in a close one by 12 points. For the Saturday games now, first one up, we do have the Kangaroos taking on the Suns at Marvel Stadium. The first game up for Saturday. Gold Coast, we all know, they are yet to pick up a win away from home this year. Surely the time is now against North Melbourne at Marvel Stadium. It has to be. The bottom place side. Yes, North Melbourne have strung together some good performances as of late at Marvel Stadium, but Gold Coast at their best when their midfielders really get gelling along behind the ball, when Sam Collins and Macca get their intercept game going. And from last week's win against Collingwood, I thought their pressure was excellent. They were able to lock the ball really well in their forward half and convert off their chance as well. Last week, though, we did see a lot of down performances from the Kangas midfield. The absence of George Wardlaw is definitely hurting with their clearances. 𝐼𝐷 was pretty quiet. 𝐓𝐴𝐷𝐞, he's been in okay form. He wasn't at his absolute peak either. And Nick Larkey's been well contained too. So given it's at Marvel, I do like to give the Roos a chance here. Surely they are close from their second win of the season, and it's a good opportunity here against Gold Coast, who are yet to win away from home, but got to be bullish on the Suns. This is their chance to make finals this year. They should be knocking off teams like the Kangas, and to be fair, it's got to happen now, a win away from home. So we'll back them in, better team on paper, and they'll win this one by 19 points. Then the next 1:45 p.m. game here, we have got Port Adelaide taking on the Western Bulldogs at the Adelaide Oval. Now, I have been an absolute sucker for Port Adelaide in tipping this year. I keep on backing them in, especially at home, and they just aren't getting it done for me. So I've got to be a bit more ruthless, I think, when it comes to tipping Port Adelaide. But I don't want to tip against them for the sake of it. But, geez, just a completely vulnerable side at the moment. They got completely dragged down to St Kilda's level, really, in terms of ball skills and movement in, I'd say, one of the worst games of the year on Sunday afternoon against the Saints. It was terrible how they were converting inside 50, and geez, defensively, they're looking really poor one-on-one. Just not a strong system and a reliable defensive structure, it feels like they have at the moment. But thanks to the likes of Butters, Rosie, Horn, Francis, they were able to really get control of that midfield battle to get the win over the Saints. It's going to be no easy test, though, coming up against the Dogs. They are really now starting to get a bit of their bite back. Number one in the competition from points off stoppage the last 5 or 6 weeks or so. Bontempelli at the moment having a stellar season, consistent as ever. Liberatore and Richards in the midfield's been a great move. And behind the ball too, they did throw Rory Lobb back in defence, so it looks to be potentially a good move from 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐵𝐵. But as I always say, given it's at the Adelaide Oval, you always want to give Port Adelaide a bit of the upper hand, given they do play their best footy at the AO. They've really got to try and win that midfield game, get control of the contested game, and lock the ball well in their forward half, because they were one of the top forward half sides from last year. But the cohesion at the moment is just all out the window. I feel like the players are playing on quite low morale at the moment, so I just can't back them at the moment. I'm liking the Dogs. They're on the build. They've picked up their past two games they've won, and I think they should head to Adelaide Oval. They seem to play Adelaide quite well, I'd say, and I think they'll win this one, the Doggies. Just in the better form. I think the midfield game can get on top of Ports, given they have been exposed against a couple of sides like Carlton and like the Lions too. So the Dogs, I think, will win this one, and Ken will be under more pressure, and we'll go the Doggies by 22 points. For the Saturday twilight game, we do have the Cats taking on the Hawks at GMHBA Stadium. This one, yeah, it's always a classic rivalry, the Cats and the Hawks, and I feel like this one is a big game coming up. You've got the Cats sitting in 5th place, but when you look at the form ladder, the Hawks, they might be sitting in 13th, but they are sitting, I think, 2nd since round 6 or round 7 or something. I did see also on Twitter that they are the best 13th place team in history. When you look back at the past ladders, they are sitting with a positive win-loss record, yet they are still in the bottom 6. So there you go. They're going a lot better than what their ladder does suggest. A complete team performance it was against the Eagles last week. Got the job done. As I said in the Power Rankings video last week, they just look like they're playing fun footy. Everybody's enjoying themselves. The youngsters are really gelling nicely. They're getting plenty of good play as well from their senior core. Just a well-oiled machine at the moment. And when a team's on high spirits, they are a hard team to knock off. They might potentially be without James Sicily, though. He had a few shoulder issues earlier in the year. He's going to have surgery at the end of the season, I do know. And he popped out a shoulder last week, so apparently he's going to be having to face a fitness test. So he's going to be a critical importance if the Hawks are a chance here. I like what I did see of the Cats in their win over the Bombers. They were able to flick a switch really after half-time and get their turnover game going in their forward half game. This is areas where the Cats were very good in 2022, and Ollie Dempsey, I thought he was one of the best players on ground. Geez, his last few weeks has been excellent. That link-up player high up the ground can also get involved in the score involvements, and we always say this about the Cats, they've just got so many smart players, and usually at home they can really get their high chemistry game going and picking apart targets nicely. Dangerfield as well was really good last week, so I feel like if he can keep injury-free, he should get better with match fitness given his age. So a big test here against one of the informed teams in the competition of the Hawks. Playing a finals brand, as we always say. Their pressure's been awesome. They just attacking ground contests so well. Link-up play is great. Behind the ball's awesome too. They're just hard to pick out a negative at the moment with the Hawks, and I feel like I want to continue hopping on the bandwagon and tipping in here, which I feel like I might. But yeah, it probably does depend a little bit on James Sicily too. But I'm bullish on Geelong. I like what I did see last week. I should gain form with a few of those older players too, I reckon. And at home at 𝐓𝐡𝐞 Stadium. This is always a fierce rivalry too. I'll go with the safe tip of the Cats here. I just like them at home a little bit more, and given that Hawthorn, still a young team, they might have a bad performance here or there. So yeah, with the Cats, if they can get that turnover game going, I like them here. So we'll back in the Cats in a close game that'll go either way, but Geelong to storm home in the fourth and win it by 14 points. For the Saturday night games now, first one up, we do have GWS taking on the Blues at NG Stadium. Well, when you look at the Giants, currently sitting in 10th place, it's been probably after round 6 or round 7, a really poor patch or just inconsistent patch of football from them. Their defensive half games just really struggled. That's where they get a lot of their points. Remember that orange tsunami style? That's just been well beaten in a few games like the Swans lost and also the Crows lost last week. Well beaten in the midfield. Got demolished in the stoppage game, and the contest possession game was not in their favour. To be fair, it was 𝐼𝐞 first game back, so he should gain a bit of sharpness this week, you'd think, against the Blues. So with their talent, the Giants, they can always pip you, but facing one of the most informed teams in the competition, or currently I think the most informed team in the competition of the Blues, it's going to be a tough task. The Blues have been able to get a number of the Giants a couple of times, I'm pretty sure, at this venue as well. And also, like the Hawks, they're just really looking like they're enjoying their footy. A well-oiled machine. The turnover game was very impressive against the Tigers, how they were able to kick, what was it, like 7 or 8 unanswered goals in like 10 minutes or something in that third term. It's scary. This is what good sides can really do, put the foot down, and they've been able to do that in a lot of their wins, like the fourth quarter against Port Adelaide, for example. Paddy Cripps and Sam Walsh were stars in last week's win as well. Curnow had a quiet game, but they're getting a lot more contribution from those role players. Loving Elijah Holland's season, getting involved in so many attacking chains. His work rate's been great. 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐴's as well. Kennedy's been great in the midfield too. Just so many of those role players starting to get a lot more involved in the Blues scoring. Fogarty as well hit the scoreboard quite nicely too. So they're good. They're playing good footy. They're in really good form. The Giants have been vulnerable in the midfield. It's hard for me to go past against the Blues here. Yes, they might be due for a bit of a bad performance or a game that they dropped, like the Swans did last week against the Dockers, but it's hard to go against them for me. So the Giants, with their attacking prowess, they could really flick the switch and get up here, but the Blues just playing some strong footy in really all areas of the ground. So Carlton win this game and win it well by 26 points. And the next Saturday night game, we have Fremantle taking on the Tigers at Optus Stadium. I've been seeing online, people have been joking about this game as the Sydney Swans Cup, given that these are the two sides that have beaten the Swans this year. So who can get on top here? Well, this is a bit of a bogey side for the Dockers, might I say. I think the last couple of times the Tigers have been able to pip them well, but this year it's much different when you look at it, given that the Tigers are sitting with 2 wins for the season, and just the cliff is coming for them. They'll continue to be competitive, but completely and utterly belted by the Blues last week, and also belted really from the Hawks too. I don't know how they'll go here against the Dockers. They've been a little bit up and down Fremantle, but geez, they'll gain plenty of confidence with that win over the Swannies. Terrific it was. They shut down the Swannies' prime ball movers of Heaney, Warner and Goulden. And how they move, and this is what I said in the tipping video last week with the Swans and Fremantle preview. If they really get that defensive half game going of moving it quickly through the middle of the ground, they can put on a bit of a score, and that's exactly what they did against the Swannies. And with the big open ground of Optus, they always love to control the football through their uncontested style as well. Defensively, they're in really good form as well. Josh Draper had easily career best game last week. He was huge with the absence of Alex Pearce. So the Tigers, as I do say, I think they'll be competitive for maybe a half or so. With games they've played well in this year, they've been able to win the contested games, so that could be a chance here, or an area of trying to find a way to win an area of a game, try and get on top of that midfield battle, especially against the Dockers. But off the back of that win against the Swannies, I think they're a team with high morale, playing good footy. I think the Dockers at home should be too good here for the Tigers. So we'll back in the Dockers here over Richmond, and they should win this one well by 33 points. For the Sunday games now, first one up, we do have the Demons taking on the Eagles at the MCG. A lot better of a performance last week from the D's over the Brisbane Lions. They really got their stoppage game going, and defensively I thought they were great too, but they just smacked Brisbane, especially in that second quarter, around the footy, especially in the clearance game. Clayton Oliver, very good performance last week, and Jack Viney, he's been a little bit up and down, but he was brilliant to watch too. But geez, I feel like with how they ended that game, that's been now 2 weeks in a row. the Demons have had scoreless fourth quarters. They've just been parking the bus, and I don't know what Simon Goodwin's been doing with that. Just after three-quarter time, they could not get a score going. And for me, a loss like that could really kill off their season. They invested so much energy into that game, and I thought they played great, but they just fall short once again. So that would probably hurt them internally. So they definitely want to bounce back here with a big win potentially over the Eagles. West Coast, poor performance really was last week. We always like to talk about the good with a few teams that are struggling. The Eagles have been able to gain some ascendancy in the midfield throughout their good performance this year. Harley Reid was a little bit rusty, obviously, in last week's loss, but geez, a lot of players downing tools, and they just got well beaten in transition. A lot of goals they conceded just from poor work rate. They've got to be much better than that heading into this game against Melbourne. And look, they did knock off the D's last time, and they've just played such highly energetic footy and free-flowing football when they did knock off the D's. So with the big ground of the G, do they replicate that once again? But in the end, given it's the Eagles, I just can't put trust in them tipping. And with how Melbourne's midfield went last week, that does give me the confidence to back in here over the Eagles. So, don't know how this one will go, to be honest. It could be a bit of a low-scoring scrap, could be going either way, but Melbourne should be too good in the end. Better team on paper as well. So, we're back in the Ds, and they'll win this one by 20 points. On prime time, we do have the Saints taking on the Swannies at Marvel Stadium. The Saints last week weren't able to get the job done, and just inaccuracy forward of centre again, and a lack of cohesion issues really did hurt them. But I think another big issue for them is just the midfield is just not being very productive with their scoring. I think they only kicked 4 points from stoppage last week in their loss to Port Adelaide. And when you've got a Sydney Swans midfield that, yes, was exposed quite well from Fremantle. I think the Dockers always seem to match up well on the Swannies, to be fair. But they got exposed. But they're going to be angry coming in this game. I think the Swannies against the Saints. They'll definitely want to try and win that midfield battle. The Saints get on top of the clearance game. And does 𝗏𝐻𝐺𝐵 potentially go to someone like an 𝘼𝐻𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐸 or shut down one of their prime movers? Like 𝑛at5 head-to-head went very well on Heaney last week, for example. Just so inconsistent when watching the Saints play. It can be a bit of an eyesore at times, but as we always say, I thought they were able to show it a little bit last week too. They did get some pretty well-worked goals from some nice chains from their defensive half. So the Swannies, they were exposed a little bit last week from their defensive transition. So this is where the Saints, through their running power, could try and get on top of the Swannies, potentially cause a bit of an upset. Who knows? But with Sydney, it was a 1-point loss, let's remember, against the Dockers. They didn't play too great, or their game got quite diminished for 3 quarters, but they came storming home. The slow starts as well for the Swans really do need to improve. So, to be honest, I could definitely see the Saints kicking like the first 3 goals of the game, let's say. But Sydney, their second halves have been very good, though. They did win the second half against Freo last week, and I just think with the plays they've got and the midfield they have, they should get on top of the Saints midfield, given how they've been going. So, the Swans should be too good here. They'll run over the top and win this one by 24 points. And for the final game of the round, we do have the Lions taking on the Crows at the Gabba. Adelaide, much better. Good bounce-back win last week against the Giants. They did win that midfield battle really well, smacked the Giants in contested ball, and forward of the ball, you had the likes of 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐸 Rankine changing the game. So he's definitely one that's going to be critical importance if the Crows maybe want to cause an upset here. The Crows run their on as well. They can be a very damaging side from how they move the footy from their defensive half. And like we've seen with Brisbane this year, throughout periods of games, they can drop off a little bit. For example, last week against the Demons, they got well beaten in clearances. So if Adelaide expose the Lions in defensive transition, that's been an issue for Brisbane this year. They could maybe put on a bit of a score, be leading at half-time, but in all seriousness though, the Lions for the most part are heavily improving their game. Number 1 in the competition from points from turnover the last couple of weeks. They've been a damaging side in the midfield too. Given it's at home as well, Brisbane, they're now starting to get the wheel rolling with their strong suit of high cohesion footy and damage of clearance and turnover. I think the Lions should be too strong here for the Crows. So they run away with this one, the Lions, for the last game of the round, and win this by, I think, a bit of a tight game. We'll go Brisbane by 15. So everyone, there were my tips for round 17 of the 2024 AFL season. Let me know what your tips are down below in the comments section. Are you going to be picking any roughies? There are a few potential upsets that could be on the cards once again for this week. But how about this season? It's a massive logjam at the moment. It's between really 6th and 12th place or 13th place. There's a big race on for who can make the finals. But hopefully you'd enjoy, everybody. And until next time, I will talk to you later. See you later, folks.